I'm tying the Bissett on a number 6 3x long hook. I've tried tying it on a number of different hooks, but the wing doesn't look right. Tying it from the illustration in Mary Orvis Marbury's book, Favorite Flies and Their Histories. The longer hook shank hopefully will make that wing look proper. Red thread. I am using a bicolor tinsel for the tag. It's a silver tag in the illustration, so I tie it in with the silver towards the shank, move my thread out of the way, and then flip it when I start wrapping, and that makes the silver side show. So a few wraps down the bend of the hook, trying to keep it flat, and then bring my tinsel back up to the tying point, bring my thread back, and then I'm going to wrap up over that tinsel to tie it in. Doesn't take a lot to hold the tinsel in place. Try to keep from wrapping the tip of it down in, and then I can clip out the extra. I am using gold wire. This is 0.2 millimeter wire for the rib, and it doesn't have to be tied in real tight at this point, so saving on thread, just a loose wrap where I'm going to tie in the body material. Red floss. This is actually 240 denier red thread doubled, and tie it back to where I have the tag started. Wrap it in nice and tight there. Make sure that I have both the body material and that tag well secured. For the tail, I'm going to be using these gold fibers off of a pheasant shoulder. It's going to even up the tips. The tail does kind of stand up, so let's tie this in back here, giving myself enough room to tie underneath it, wrap underneath of it with the body material and still see the tag, and then just wrap up over the butt ends. I'm not even going to clip the butt ends because they don't go beyond the end of the shank of the hook. Now I'm getting that thread wrapped underneath. Let's see, which way am I supposed to be wrapping this? No, it's I think it's the other way. Is that? Yeah, that's right. Okay. So one wrap underneath of the wing material will hold it up, and then I can use the floss to just kind of help it lay down a little bit more. I don't want it straight up. And then start wrapping that floss. It's doubled, so I don't have to do as many wraps. But I'm going to put down one nice even layer. It's looking pretty thin, so I'm going to want to come back over that and make it a little thicker. But as I am wrapping, I'm beginning to wonder if I cut a long enough piece of this red floss for the body. We'll see what happens. It's kind of running out way before I want it to, particularly since I want to build up the body a little bit more than it is. So I'll just wrap back, and my thread is splitting and the wrap isn't real even. Hopefully when I put the rib up over that, that'll help even it out, or at least kind of hide the unevenness of my body wrapping. It's a good thing I'm not tying this for a contest, although I am tying it to show on the World Wide Web. So I'm just running out of thread there. Okay, tie that end in, wraps over the top, wraps underneath to secure it, And I'll just clip out the extra there. And I do need a good amount of space up behind the eye for the hackle and the wings, so I'm not worried about having the body end where it did. Yeah, looks like wrapping that wire up over the body is going to hide at least some of the lumps in the body. And then just bring my thread back to where I can do some wraps over the wire, and then pull back on the wire and wrap underneath of it to secure it in and helicopter it off. Then I'm using this dyed red hen for the front hackle. Just checking to see the length of the hackle. It looks about right, a little bit longer than the gape. And grab the tip of that hackle feather with my hackle pliers, and then I'll pull back on all the fibers that will become the hackle, and then trim out that tip, leaving that tiny little triangle. That's my tie-in triangle. Wrap up over that, and that'll secure it to the hook shank. What's the best way? This is really not a soft hackle kind of feather, so the fibers don't really want to pull back like a soft hackle would, so I'm kind of wrapping it more like I would do a dry hackle, although it's not a dry fly particularly. And I think that maybe I do want to try to pull back on those, so if I kind of preen back a little bit, it'll help those fibers lay back a little bit more. So Mary's book was published in 1892. This fly is named after a Mr. Bissett, who had a fishing supply company in New York, and it's from a little bit earlier in the 1800s. I'll just wrap up over that stem a few times and then wet my fingers, pull everything back cleanly, wrap up over the end. I prefer now to try to snap that stem out, but this is it's a pretty heavy stem, so I'm going to just have to clip it out. So I'm pulling down on my thread to keep it tight, and then just clip that butt end out. Try to separate the hackle fibers a little bit on the top to lay in the wing. The wing is going to be this black duck quill. It's obviously dyed quill. And so just lay it kind of in between the fibers and the hackle on top of the hook shank about the length that I want it. And pinch it, wrap up over it, hold it tight in my fingers to try to keep it from separating too much, and then just wrap up over those butt ends. And this fly does have a really unique collar on it, and I tried a number of different things to see if I could mimic Mary's collar better than I really ended up doing. But I'm just going to use the butt ends of that wing fibers to create that black collar. I don't think it turns out, none of the flies that I did turn out quite as pretty as the illustration in Mary's book, but clip out the thread, and then I'm going to try to just clip those fibers, make them a little shorter. See if I can mimic what kind of looks more like a black fuzz in Mary's fly. Yeah, I think that wing looks fairly decent on a longer shank. And then some head cement on it. I do use a diluted goop. Drop my needle in the bottle and a few drops on the head.